Did people in the medieval world only care about lords and ladies? Were everyday commoners, toiling in fields and workshops, incapable of monumental love? What if their passions, their heartbreaks, and their devotion burned just as brightly, captivating entire communities between 500 CE and 1500 CE? Number 1. The Soldier and the Village Healer. The wind carried the scent of pine and peat across the Scottish Highlands in the late 1480s. Kael, a common foot soldier, walked with a limp, his shoulders stooped, not just by the weight of his simple pack, but by invisible burdens. He was returning from years of brutal border skirmishes, a man forever changed by the clang of steel and the cries of the dying. His face, once open and youthful, was now etched with the lines of hardship, his eyes holding a distant, haunted look that made most villagers shy away. They called him the War Touch. Lyra, the village healer, met his gaze with a gentle curiosity that spoke of understanding, not pity. She was a woman of quiet strength, her hands stained with the remedies of the earth, her knowledge passed down through generations of women who knew the ways of herbs and the solace of a calm voice. Her small cottage, nestled at the edge of the village, was a sanctuary of healing and wisdom, a place where people brought their broken bones and their troubled minds. Kael first came to Lyra out of desperation. A wound long festering beneath his worn tunic had finally become unbearable. He entered her cottage, hesitant and gruff, expecting the usual fearful glance or the hurried efficiency of someone wanting to be done with him. Instead, Lyra simply nodded, her gaze steady as she bade him sit. She cleaned his wound with warm water and infused cloths, her touch surprisingly light, her presence soothing. She did not ask about the battles, nor did she speak of the horrors he had seen. She spoke only of healing, of the way the body mends itself, of the strength in every living thing. He returned to her cottage day after day, not just for his wound, which slowly began to close, but for the quiet peace he found there. Lyra would sometimes hum soft tunes as she worked, or tell stories of the plants she gathered from the hillsides. She listened more than she spoke, letting Kael find his own words when he was ready. Slowly, haltingly, he began to speak of the cold nights, the hunger, the friends lost. Lyra just listened, offering a warm mug of herbal tea, a knowing nod, a hand laid gently on his arm. Their bond grew from this quiet trust. Kael, once a man who saw only desolation, began to notice the small beauties. Lyra pointed out the first buds of spring, the intricate pattern of a spider's web, the comforting scent of wood smoke from her hearth. He found himself drawn to her calm strength, a stark contrast to the chaos he had known. Lyra, in turn, saw beyond Kael's scarred exterior to the kind, gentle man he had been before the war, a man still capable of great tenderness and loyalty. She saw the pain he carried and felt a deep, unwavering desire to help him find peace. Their connection, though profound, was not without its challenges. Kael's family, wary of his distant demeanor and the lasting shadow of the war, urged him to find a strong, practical woman, one who could work the land and forget the past. Lyra, though respected for her healing, was seen by some as too independent, too focused on her strange herbs and solitary life. She did not fit the traditional mold of a farmer's wife. Village gossip, fueled by old fears and new uncertainties, began to whisper about the war-touched soldier and the witchy healer. One harsh winter, the village faced a severe illness, a fever that swept through families, leaving many weak and breathless. Lyra worked tirelessly, her small store of herbs dwindling, her own strength fading. She moved from house to house, her lamp a beacon in the darkness, offering what comfort and remedies she could. Kael, though still struggling with his own demons, saw her exhaustion. He knew she risked her own health, that she spent her days and nights tending to the sick, while many hid in their homes. He began to help her, carried her heavy baskets of remedies, fetched water from the well, gathered firewood for her hearth. He would stand guard outside homes where the sick lay, ensuring no one disturbed Lyra as she worked. He didn't speak much, but his presence was a steady comfort. He took on the tasks no one else would touch, demonstrating a quiet, selfless devotion that began to chip away at the villagers' fears. They saw not a war-touched ghost, but a man of steadfast courage, standing by the woman who risked everything for them. When Lyra herself succumbed to the fever, weakened by her tireless efforts, Kael did not leave her side. He nursed her with the same gentle care she had shown him. He brewed her the specific herbal teas she had taught him about, kept her warm, and sat by her bedside through the long, frightening nights. He spoke to her, not of battles or despair, but of the quiet moments they had shared, the small hopes she had helped him rekindle. He spoke of his love for her, raw and unvarnished, a soldier's simple, honest declaration. As Lyra slowly recovered word of Kael's unwavering devotion spread through the village, the whispers about the war-touched and the witchy healer began to fade, replaced by stories of their mutual courage and selflessness. The people saw how Kael, once broken, had found his purpose in caring for Lyra, and how Lyra, with her boundless compassion, had healed not just Kael's body, but his spirit. Their story of a soldier finding peace and a healer finding strength in mutual love became a legend in the Highlands. It was told around firesides, not just as a romance, but as a testament to resilience, compassion, and the power of finding solace in another person, even when the world seemed to have forgotten you. Chroniclers passing through the region like Brother Anselm of Stirling Abbey noted down the persistent tale, fascinated by the profound healing that sprang from such a quiet, unassuming love. Kael and Lyra's marriage, when it eventually happened, was a simple affair, but the entire village came their cheers echoing through the valley, not just celebrating a union, but celebrating the triumph of enduring love over hardship. Their small cottage, once a lonely sanctuary, became a beacon of hope, known throughout the region for its warmth, its healing, and the powerful, quiet love that bloomed within its walls. Number 2. The stablehand and the weaver's apprentice. In the prosperous English manor town of Ashworth, in the late 1390s, where the scent of wood smoke mingled with the sharp tang of dye from the weaver's workshops, lived Gareth, a stablehand, and Alys, a weaver's apprentice. Gareth was a man of the earth, an animal strong and steady, with hands roughed from mending harnesses and caring for the Lord's horses. His laughter when it came was a hearty rumble that warmed those around him. Alys, by contrast, was nimble and sharp, her fingers skilled at threading intricate patterns, her mind quick to grasp the complexities of her craft. She moved with a quiet grace, her eyes bright with intelligence. They met not in a grand hall, but in the bustling manor courtyard. Gareth would often see Alys as she delivered finished cloth to the Lord's steward, or as she hurried to the village market. He admired her industriousness, her focused demeanor, and the way her brow furrowed in concentration when she was thinking deeply about a problem. Alys, for her part, was drawn to Gareth's quiet strength, his evident kindness towards the animals, and the genuine warmth of his smile. Their courtship was one of stolen moments, shared glances across the crowded yard, brief conversations at the village well, and the occasional stroll after their grueling day's work past the stone cottages and the blossoming apple orchards. Gareth would tell her tales of the horses, their quirks and temperaments, and Alys would describe the vibrant colors she was weaving into tapestries, the stories they told in thread. They were building a quiet world together, woven from shared understanding and mutual respect. Their bond was tested, however, when a series of petty thefts plagued the manor. Tools vanished from the blacksmith's forge, sacks of grain disappeared from the storehouses, and even a prized hunting falcon went missing. The Lord's steward, a man named Master Godfrey, known for his sternness and quick temper, grew increasingly frustrated. He demanded an explanation, a culprit. In the atmosphere of suspicion, blame began to fall upon Gareth. He had been seen near the grain stores at odd hours, though he was merely checking on a sick mare. He had spoken with a traveling merchant who was later accused of stealing from another village. Small, innocent actions were twisted and magnified into damning evidence. A disgruntled former stablehand recently dismissed by Master Godfrey spread rumors fueled by old grudges, suggesting Gareth was not as honest as he seemed. Gareth, stunned and bewildered by the accusations, found himself under intense scrutiny, his honest denials falling on deaf ears. The accusations threatened his livelihood, his reputation, and his very freedom. In medieval manor life, a commoner accused of theft could face severe punishment, even the gallows. The Lord's court was set to hear the matter, and the evidence, though circumstantial, was piling up against him. Fear began to grip Gareth, twisting his usual steady demeanor, but Alys refused to let despair take hold. She knew Gareth. She knew his integrity, his deep sense of responsibility. She saw the genuine hurt in his eyes, the shock of betrayal, while others in the village began to distance themselves. Fearing guilt by association, Alys stood firm. She spent her days poring over Gareth's work schedule, cross-referencing it with the dates of the thefts. She spoke to other stable hands, to the blacksmith, to anyone who might have seen something, however small. She was meticulous, driven by an unwavering belief in the man she loved. Her efforts seemed small against the tide of gossip, and Master Godfrey's stern pronouncements. The day the hearing arrived, a grim affair held in the manor hall. Gareth stood before the Lord and his steward, his head bowed, the weight of the accusations pressing down on him. Witness after witness gave testimony that, while not explicitly condemning, painted a picture of a man who could have committed the crimes. Then Alys stepped forward. Her voice, usually quiet, was clear and steady as she addressed the Lord. She did not raise her voice, nor did she accuse anyone else. Instead, she presented her findings with calm precision. She explained that on the night the falcon disappeared, Gareth had been with the birthing mare, a difficult delivery that had lasted well into the night. Corroborated by the midwife she had spoken to, she described how the missing tools had been last seen on a market day, when Gareth was assisting the Lord's farrier in the next village. She even presented a small distinctive piece of blue thread found near the grain store, identical to the thread used in the dismissed stablehand's old tunic, a detail she had noticed when he had visited her workshop weeks prior. Testimony was not based on emotion, but on fact, on careful observation, and on an intimate knowledge of Gareth's daily life and his character. She spoke of his honesty, his diligence, his unshakable integrity, not as subjective opinion, but as demonstrated through countless actions she had witnessed. She showed how the former stablehand had motive and opportunity, detailing how he was known to sneak into the manor grounds at night for old discarded tools, a habit the man had continued even after his dismissal. A hush fell over the hall. Master Godfrey, initially dismissive, listened intently as Alys laid out her case, her logic irrefutable. The Lord, impressed by her composure and the clear evidence she presented, ordered a re-investigation based on her new information. Within days the truth emerged. The dismissed stablehand, bitter and vengeful, had indeed been responsible for the thefts attempting to frame Gareth. The missing falcon was found in a nearby village, sold by the culprit. Gareth was cleared, his name restored. The relief that washed over him was immense, but it was overshadowed by a profound gratitude for Alys. Her unwavering faith, her meticulous effort, and her courage to speak truth to power had saved him. Her brave public testimony, delivered with such quiet conviction, became the talk of Ashworth and the surrounding villages. It was a story not just of innocence proven, but of a commoner's loyalty that shone brighter than any legal parchment. Their love, once a quiet understanding, now became a celebrated example of devotion. The tale of Alys's fierce defense of Gareth was passed down through generations. Recounted in taverns and during evening gatherings, came a reminder that true love was not just about affection, but about standing by someone in their darkest hour, about fighting for them when they could not fight for themselves. Their marriage was a testament to this enduring bond, a symbol of a trust that had been tested and found unbreakable. Gareth and Alys built their life together in Ashworth, their story a living legend of how a simple weaver's apprentice saved her stable hand, demonstrating loyalty and courage that captivated the entire region. Number 3. The Scribe and the Innkeeper's Daughter. In the German crossroads town of Eisenach, nestled among rolling hills in the late 1070s, stood the Golden Boar, a bustling inn known for its hearty ale and lively chatter. Agnes, the innkeeper's daughter, was the heart of the place. She moved with an easy grace, her laugh quick and infectious, her mind sharp as she managed the flow of travelers' orders and coin. She was practical, earthy, and beloved by all who frequented the inn. Across town in a quiet stone house near the church lived Alys, the village scribe. He was a man of parchment and ink, his days spent meticulously copying manuscripts, drafting letters for those who could not write, and keeping the village records. Alys was studious, thoughtful, and perhaps a little shy, his world filled with the rustle of pages and the quiet scratching of his quill. He found beauty in words, in the careful formation of letters, in the precise articulation of thought. Their paths crossed through Alys's work. The inn, being a hub of activity, often required Alys's services to draft business letters to distant merchants, to record transactions, or even to pen a heartfelt message for a lovesick traveler. Agnes, with her quick wit and organizational skills, often oversaw these requests. She found Alys's quiet demeanor endearing, his intense focus on his work fascinating. Alys, captivated by Agnes's vibrant energy and the warmth she brought to every interaction, found himself looking forward to her visits. Their connection deepened. Through the letters Alys wrote for her father, and later for Agnes herself, she would dictate her practical mind, forming clear instructions, and Alys would transcribe, sometimes adding a flourish or a more elegant phrase, always with her approval. He learned of her dreams for the inn, her frustrations with the rowdy patrons, her plans for a new herb garden. Agnes, in turn, learned of Alys's love for old tales, his fascination with the stars, his quiet observations about the world. He taught her the beauty of a well-turned phrase, the power of a perfectly chosen word. Their love blossomed in these shared moments of creation and understanding, a gentle intertwining of their disparate worlds. Alys's quiet scholarship found a lively counterpart in Agnes's bustling practicality. She brought him out of his shell, encouraging him to join the evening gatherings at the inn, where he, to his own surprise, found he enjoyed the company. He, in turn, showed her the quiet beauty of a meticulously crafted book, the joy of a story preserved for generations. However, their unique bond, born from shared understanding, became vulnerable to the very thing Alys cherished. Words. The town of Eisenach was a small world, and gossip traveled faster than any written message. A misunderstanding began to brew, fueled by a jealous suitor of Agnes's, a boisterous merchant who saw Alys as a weak rival. He began to spread subtle untruths, twisting Alys's quiet nature into aloofness, his studious habits into an obsession. He hinted that Alys looked down on Agnes's working-class background, that he saw her as unrefined, despite all evidence to the contrary. These insidious whispers reached Agnes. Her practical nature, usually her strength, made her vulnerable to direct, seemingly logical accusation. She had seen how different Alys was from the boisterous inn patrons, how easily he could withdraw into himself. The merchant's words preyed on her unspoken fears, that Alys, with his books and his elegant words, might indeed find her lacking. She grew distant, her laughter less frequent, her interactions with Alys becoming strained and formal. Alys, bewildered by Agnes's sudden coldness, tried to understand. He approached her, hoping to speak directly, but her hurt and newfound suspicions created a wall between them. The more he pressed, the more she retreated, believing his questions were further evidence of his disdain. He was a man of words, but in direct confrontation they seemed to fail him. He was losing her, and he did not know why. In his despair, Alys turned to the one thing he knew best: writing. He penned a letter to Agnes, pouring out his confusion, his love, his deep respect for her, and his utter bewilderment at her change of heart. He detailed the joy she brought to his life, the ways she had enriched his understanding of the world. He recounted specific moments, small gestures, shared smiles, things that only they would know. He spoke of his fears that he had somehow offended her and pleaded for her to tell him what was wrong, to not let whispers destroy what they had. Agnes, though still hurt, felt a pang of curiosity. She was a practical woman, but she knew Alys's hand, and she could not ignore the raw sincerity in his elegant script. She read it once, then again. The words, carefully chosen, slowly began to dismantle the doubts planted by the malicious gossip. He didn't just deny the accusations. He explained with meticulous clarity his true feelings and intentions. Referencing their shared history, he offered no accusations, only a plea for understanding. She wrote back a hesitant reply, at first describing her hurt and the rumors she had heard, still cautious, still guarded. And Alys replied again, with patience and grace, not defending himself angrily, but gently dismantling each false claim, replacing it with the truth of his heart. He wrote, not as a man accused, but as a man who sought to heal a wound, a man who believed in the power of honest communication. This exchange became a series of letters, each one slowly peeling back the layers of misunderstanding, each word a testament to their mutual respect and profound love. Alys, through his eloquent patience, demonstrated the depth of his devotion. Agnes, through her courage to read and respond, showed her willingness to trust and to seek the truth. The letters became a bridge between their two worlds, a quiet conversation that healed the rift. Their reconciliation was quiet but profound. They were seen together again at the Golden Boar, sharing soft smiles, their bond stronger for having weathered the storm. The story of their letters of truth spread through Eisenach and beyond, carried by the very travelers who passed through the inn. It was a unique tale, not of grand gestures or heroic deeds, but of the power of words of patience and of honest communication to overcome malicious gossip and misunderstanding. Scribes and scholars would later reference the letters of Alys and Agnes as a rare example of commoners resolving deep personal conflict through reasoned, written dialogue. Their story became a model for resolving disputes with patience and grace, a quiet legend of a love that found its way back through the honest language of the heart. Number 4. The Fisherman and the Net Mender. Along the craggy coast of Brittany in the mid-1150s, where the Atlantic waves crashed against ancient stones, lived Ronan, a fisherman with hands calloused by rope and sea salt, and Maeve, a skilled net mender, whose fingers danced through twine with astonishing speed. Ronan was a man of the sea, his life dictated by tides and winds, his face weathered and kind. Maeve, though rooted on land, understood the sea's rhythm in her bones. Her nets were the very sinews of the fishing fleet. They were a pairing as natural as the sea and shore. Ronan brought Maeve the broken nets, tangled and torn by the ocean's fury, and Maeve, with her quiet strength and meticulous skill, restored them, weaving strength back into every knot. Their conversations were simple yet deep. Ronan spoke of the vast, unpredictable ocean, the bounty it offered, and the dangers it held. Maeve spoke of the patterns. She wove the strength needed in each stitch. The way a good net was a promise of sustenance. Their love was built on mutual respect and shared reliance. Ronan knew his livelihood depended on Maeve's work, and Maeve knew her craft enabled Ronan's adventures. Their home, a small cottage perched near the harbor, was filled with the scent of salt and drying fish and the quiet rhythm of Maeve's shuttle. They had 2 children, a sturdy boy who dreamed of the sea, and a quiet girl who helped her mother with the nets. Life was hard marked by the sea's capriciousness, but it was also full of a deep, abiding love. Then came the storm. It was a tempest unlike any the Breton coast had seen in living memory. A furious gale that swept in from the west, churning the ocean into a raging cauldron of foam and dark water. Ronan, along with several other fishing boats, had been caught far from shore, too deep in the fishing grounds to make it back when the warning signs appeared. The village watched in terror from the cliffs as the sky turned bruised purple and the waves rose like monstrous clawed hands. One by one, the boats disappeared from sight, swallowed by the maelstrom. When the storm finally spent its fury, leaving behind a sky of bruised calm and a devastated coastline, only wreckage remained. The fishermen's wives and children gathered on the beach, their faces etched with despair. No boats, no men. Maeve was among them, but unlike the others who wept openly, she stood silent, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She felt a profound, unwavering conviction that Ronan was alive. She could not explain it, but a deep certainty pulsed within her. She told her children, "Your father is strong. He will find his way back." The other villagers, mourning their own losses, looked at her with a mixture of pity and quiet disbelief. Hope was a cruel master in such times. Days turned into weeks. The other families held solemn funerals, their prayers for the lost souls echoing across the empty harbor. Maeve refused. She cleaned her nets, she prepared meals for her children, but every evening she would walk to the highest point of the cliffs, wrap her shawl tighter against the biting wind, and stare out at the endless expanse of sea. She would pray, not for his soul, but for his return. She spoke to the ocean, to the winds, to the very stars. Her voice a low murmur, a constant plea. Her solitary vigil became a silent beacon in the grieving village. Some whispered that she was mad with grief, others that she held to a fool's hope. But a few, those who had known Ronan and Maeve best, saw the quiet strength in her unwavering devotion. They began to join her on the cliffs, not to pray for Ronan, but simply to sit with Maeve, to bear witness to her extraordinary faith. Months passed. The fishing fleet was slowly rebuilt with salvaged wood and new courage. Life, as it always does, began to move forward, but the shadow of the storm remained. One cold gray morning, almost a year after the tempest, a young boy fishing in a hidden cove, far from the village, saw something adrift in the turbulent water. A makeshift raft crudely fashioned from bits of wood and old sails, and on it a man. The boy rushed back to the village, breathless with his incredible news. Skepticism reigned, but the few who had shared Maeve's vigil, spurred by an inexplicable hope, set out with the boy. They found him barely alive, emaciated and weak, but undoubtedly Ronan. He had clung to debris, drifted for weeks, and eventually, miraculously, found his way to a tiny, uninhabited island. He had survived on fish and rainwater, sustained by a single, desperate thought. Maeve, the news spread like wildfire. When Ronan was brought back to the village, his children rushed to him, crying and clinging, but his gaze, though unfocused from weakness, sought out Maeve. She was there. Her eyes filled not with shock, but with a quiet, profound certainty. There were no grand declarations, just a meeting of gazes, a slow, shared smile that spoke of a love that had defied the ocean itself. Ronan's return was nothing short of a miracle. He spoke of the brutal storm, the loss of his comrades, the endless despair. But he also spoke of a vision, a persistent image of Maeve on the cliffs, willing him home, a guiding star in the darkness. He spoke of a strength that came from knowing he was loved, that someone was waiting unwavering. The story of Ronan's miraculous return, attributed entirely to Maeve's deep love and relentless prayers, captivated not just their small village, but the entire region. It was carried by sailors along the coast, shared by merchants in the market towns, and recounted by traveling priests. The cliff where Maeve had kept her vigil became a local pilgrimage site, a place where those who sought lost loved ones or yearned for miracles would come to pray. Chroniclers, such as Brother Guillaume from a nearby monastery, recorded the remarkable tale, noting it as a profound testament to the power of human connection and faith. Ronan and Maeve's love became a living legend, a story of enduring devotion that proved love could truly conquer the vast, indifferent power of the sea, demonstrating a bond that even the deepest waters could not break. Number 5. The Apprentice and the Market Girl. The year was 1420, and Paris, though grand, was a city under the shadow of the 100 Years' War. Famine often stalked its cobbled streets, and a constant threat of conflict cast a pall over daily life. Amidst this turmoil, a carpenter's apprentice named Mathis and a seller of herbs and remedies named Lilith found a connection that defied the grim realities of their world. Mathis was a young man with a quiet determination, his hands already showing the calluses of a future craftsman. He spent his days in the workshop learning the intricate art of joining wood, shaping beams, and building sturdy structures that stood against time. Lilith, with her keen eyes and knowledge of the natural world, gathered and sold herbs in the bustling marketplace near Les Halles. Her stall was a vibrant splash of green and earthy scents amidst the urban gray, and she knew the properties of every leaf and root, offering comfort and cures to the city's common folk. Their paths crossed daily in the market, a place where all walks of Parisian life converged. Mathis would often pass Lilith's stall on his way to fetch supplies, and he found himself lingering, drawn by her calm demeanor and the quiet wisdom in her eyes. Lilith, in turn, noticed the steady focus in Mathis's gaze, his strong, capable hands, and the respectful way he interacted with everyone. Their conversations began simply about the weather, about the price of goods, then slowly deepened to shared dreams and hopes for a future. Free from war, Mathis, burdened by his family's struggles, knew he needed to make a good match, one that would secure his future and help his aging parents. His family, particularly his stern aunt, pressed him to court a baker's daughter, a sensible, well-off girl from a respected guild family. But Mathis's heart had already been claimed by Lilith. He loved her quick mind, her compassion for the sick, and the way her presence brought a quiet joy to his often strained existence. He loved how she found beauty in the smallest things, a resilience needed in a city scarred by war. The war and the resulting poverty intensified the pressure on Mathis. Work was scarce, and hunger was a constant companion for many commoners. His family saw Lilith with her simple stall and uncertain income as a further burden, not a blessing. They warned Mathis against making a foolish match, reminding him of his duty to his family's survival. They believed love was a luxury they could not afford. Lilith, too, faced her own challenges. The demand for her remedies grew as illness spread, but so did the suspicion of those who saw her knowledge as witchcraft. She was often weary, but her dedication to helping others never wavered. She saw Mathis's struggle, his quiet despair, and understood the weight of his family's expectations. She never asked him to choose, but the unspoken tension was always there. Then, a particularly harsh winter descended upon Paris. The river Seine froze, stopping trade, and food became dangerously scarce. Disease, fueled by the cold and hunger, swept through the city, claiming lives indiscriminately. Mathis's own family fell ill, including his younger sister, who coughed relentlessly, her fever rising. Doctors were expensive, and their remedies often ineffective. In desperation, Mathis turned to Lilith. He carried his sister wrapped in blankets to her small dwelling, pleading for help. Lilith, though exhausted from tending to so many, immediately took the child in. She brewed pungent teas, applied warm poultices, and sat by the girl's side through the long, dark nights, nursing her with tireless devotion. She used rare herbs she had saved for emergencies, sharing what little food she had. Mathis watched her, mesmerized by her selfless care. He saw not a simple market girl, but a woman of profound strength, compassion, and courage. She was not just healing his sister's body, but rekindling his own hope. As his sister slowly began to recover, a profound realization dawned on Mathis. The sensible match his family wanted meant nothing compared to the genuine, life-giving love he found with Lilith. He knew with an unshakable certainty that he could not live without her. On a cold, clear morning, as the ice on the Seine slowly began to break, Mathis made his decision. He did not go to his family first, nor did he seek permission. Instead, he went to Lilith's stall in the marketplace. The market was sparse, most people huddled in their homes, but a few hardy souls were beginning to venture out. He approached her stall, not with a quiet word, but with a public declaration that would echo through the streets of Paris. He knelt before her right there amidst the baskets of herbs and the scattered straw, and presented her not with a ring, for he had none, but with a small, beautifully carved wooden bird, a tiny masterpiece he had secretly crafted from a precious piece of imported oak. It was a symbol of hope. His voice, usually quiet, rang out through the market square, carrying his words to the few people present. He declared his love for Lilith, not just for her beauty or her kindness, but for her courage, her wisdom, and her unwavering spirit. He spoke of her tireless work during the illness, her compassion, and how she had healed his family and his very soul. He spoke of his desire to spend his life building a home with her, a life built on true partnership, not on convenience. He said, "I have chosen you, Lilith, above all others, for you are the true heart of this city and the very light of my life." A silence fell over the market, broken only by the chirping of sparrows. The few onlookers, including a passing city official and a merchant or two, stopped, transfixed. Such open, passionate declarations were rare, especially from commoners, and especially in such bleak times. Lilith, her eyes wide with surprise and tears, simply nodded a radiant smile. Breaking across her face, she reached out her hand, finding his. News of Mathis's grand public gesture spread through Paris, carried by word of mouth from the market to the workshops, to the churches, and even to the distant gates of the city. It was a story that offered a flicker of warmth and hope in a city ravaged by war and despair. The chroniclers of the time, such as Brother Jean Feissart's later continuators, noted such unique public displays of affection, recognizing their power to stir the common people. Mathis's family, initially furious, could not deny the impact of his passionate declaration. The sheer force of his love and the city's admiration for Lilith's compassion eventually won them over. Their wedding was a simple affair, but it was celebrated by the common folk of Paris as a triumph of love over hardship. Their story became a beloved Parisian legend, a testament to the idea that even in the darkest of times, true love could bloom, bravely declared and fiercely defended, captivating a city desperate for stories of hope and enduring human connection. Number 6. The Baker and the Brewer's Daughter. In the bustling market town of Bruges, Flanders, during the vibrant late 1280s, where the canals hummed with merchant ships and the air was thick with the scent of spices and brewing ale, lived Finn, a baker's apprentice, and Isolde, the daughter of a prominent brewer. Finn was a young man of honest toil, his hands dusted with flour, his days spent kneading dough and tending the hot ovens of Master Hendrik's bakery. He dreamed of one day owning his own bakehouse, a place where the aroma of fresh bread would draw customers from every street. Isolde, with her quick wit and discerning taste, helped her father manage their thriving brewery, the Golden Goblet. She understood the complexities of grains and hops, the delicate art of fermentation, and the shrewd dealings of commerce. Her father, a proud and successful man, envisioned a grand marriage for her, one that would further elevate their family's standing within the powerful merchant guilds of Bruges. Their paths often crossed at the early morning market, where Finn would sell his master's fresh bread and Isolde would oversee the delivery of her father's finest ale to the tavern. Their glances lingered, their conversations, initially brief and businesslike, slowly extended. Finn was enchanted by Isolde's sharp intelligence and her vibrant spirit. Isolde was drawn to Finn's quiet strength, his honest labor, and the genuine kindness in his eyes. He often brought her a warm, crusty loaf, fresh from the oven, a simple gift that spoke volumes. She, in turn, would share a small measure of a newly brewed ale, its flavor a secret shared between them. A forbidden love it was, for their families were not just commoners, but rivals. The Bakers' Guild and the Brewers' Guild, while both essential to the town's economy, often competed fiercely for resources, customers, and influence. Isolde's father, Master Peter, saw bakers as noisy, dusty tradesmen beneath the dignity of his brewing empire. Master Hendrik, Finn's master, saw brewers as pompous, arrogant men who looked down on the honest craft of bread making. Their families held old grudges, passed down through generations, making any romantic connection between their children unthinkable. Despite the animosity, Finn and Isolde nurtured their secret love. They met in hushed whispers by the moonlit canals, exchanged furtive glances in the crowded marketplace, and found stolen moments in the quiet corners of the cathedral during evening vespers. They dreamed of a life together, free from the dictates of their families and the feuds of their guilds. A life where they could pursue their craft side by side. But secrets like rising dough eventually swell and spill over. One evening, a younger apprentice from the bakery, jealous of Finn's growing skill and quick advancement, followed him and reported his clandestine meeting with Isolde to Master Hendrik. The news reached Master Peter with similar swiftness. The reaction was explosive. Finn was harshly reprimanded, threatened with dismissal and banishment from the bakery. Isolde was confined to her home, her father furious at her betrayal of their family's pride. He arranged an immediate betrothal for her to a wealthy wool merchant's son, a man twice her age, solely to secure her future and cement his own family's status. The wedding was set for a mere 2 weeks away. Despair seized Finn and Isolde. They were trapped, their love threatened with extinction by the very traditions and expectations of their commoner world. But their passion burned too fiercely to be extinguished. They exchanged desperate, smuggled notes, their words filled with pain, but also with a growing resolve. They would not be separated. They made a bold decision. They would elope. This was a dangerous gamble for commoners. It meant abandoning their apprenticeships, their families, and their established lives, venturing into an uncertain future with no guarantees. It risked disinheritance, social ostracization, and even the threat of legal repercussions from their powerful families. On the night before Isolde's forced betrothal ceremony, under the cloak of darkness and the thick Bruges fog, they met by the silent canal. Disguised in a simple cloak, carried only a small pouch of coins she had carefully saved from her market dealings. Finn had his master's bread knife, a few tools, and a heart full of hope and fear. They slipped onto a barge heading for Ghent, a city a few days' journey away, hoping to disappear amidst its larger, more anonymous population. Their disappearance caused an uproar in Bruges. Master Peter and Master Hendrik, united in their outrage, sent out search parties, but the lovers were long gone. The story of their daring elopement, fueled by the initial scandal and the family's public pronouncements of shame, quickly spread through Bruges. It was a juicy tale of forbidden love, defiance, and passion. In Ghent, they faced immense hardship. With no family connections or guild protections, they had to start from nothing. Finn worked odd jobs, hauling cargo on the docks, mending fences. Isolde sold herbs and made simple remedies, just enough to keep them fed. They lived in a tiny, cramped room, their dreams of a bakehouse and a brewery a distant echo. But their love endured. They supported each other through hunger and exhaustion, their shared defiance forging an even deeper bond. Isolde, with her sharp mind, helped Finn plan, counting every coin, seeking out opportunities. Finn, with his tireless labor, built a small, crude oven in a rented space, baking small loaves to sell. Slowly, painstakingly, they began to build their own independent business. Isolde experimented with new ale recipes, sourcing ingredients from unexpected places, her knowledge of brewing a secret weapon. Within a few years, through sheer hard work and ingenuity, Finn opened his own small bakehouse, and Isolde, with her father's rival recipes, brewed a distinct, flavorful, were of exceptional quality. Their unique blend of talents, Finn's bread, Isolde's ale, created a synergy that quickly found a loyal following in Ghent. They called their joint venture the United Loaf and Goblet, a quiet, personal defiance of the old guild rivalries. News of their success, particularly the quality of their ale and bread, eventually drifted back to Bruges. Travelers and merchants who had followed the scandal of their elopement brought back tales of their thriving business. The initial outrage and shame of their families began to fade, replaced by a grudging respect for their resilience and ingenuity. Master Peter, a shrewd businessman himself, could not deny their success. Master Hendrik, too, heard whispers of Finn's excellent bread. The story of the baker and the brewer's daughter, who defied their families and forged their own path to success through love and hard work, became a legend in both Bruges and Ghent. It was told in taverns and marketplaces, a compelling narrative of commoners overcoming formidable social barriers and old feud. Chroniclers like Lodewijk van Mille, though usually focused on nobility, sometimes noted such compelling stories of common folk, recognizing their powerful impact on popular imagination. Their daring elopement and subsequent triumph captivated the medieval world, proving that true love could be a powerful engine for building a life, even when it meant breaking all the rules. Number 7. The Ploughman and the Washerwoman. In the small, quiet English village of Oakhaven, nestled amongst fertile fields and winding streams in the early 1340s, lived Thomas, a sturdy young ploughman, and Lyra, a washerwoman whose laughter was as bright as the linen she bleached in the sun. Thomas knew the land like the back of his hand. His days spent guiding the plough through stubborn earth, turning soil for the village's sustenance. Lyra, with her strong arms and cheerful disposition, spent her hours by the river, scrubbing clothes clean, her songs echoing across the water. Their love was as simple and profound as the changing seasons. They met during harvest festivals, their hands brushing during country dances, their eyes meeting across crowded village gatherings. Thomas was drawn to Lyra's vibrant spirit and her unwavering optimism, even in the face of hard labor. Lyra admired Thomas's quiet strength, his patient nature, and his deep connection to the land that fed them all. Their courtship was built on small gestures. A wildflower Thomas picked for Lyra from the edge of a field. A piece of fresh-baked bread Lyra shared with him, still warm from her neighbor's oven. They spoke of humble dreams, a small cottage of their own, children to fill it with laughter, and a life lived simply, side by side, tied to the rhythms of the earth and the village community. They married in the village church, a simple ceremony attended by all their vows, spoken with hearts full of hope for the future. Their early years together were filled with the quiet joys and struggles common to medieval peasants. They worked hard, faced the unpredictable whims of nature, and found comfort in each other's presence. Thomas's strong back toiled in the fields, ensuring food for their table, and Lyra's diligent hands managed their small home, mended clothes, and gathered wild herbs. They welcomed their first child, a sturdy boy, and then a bright-eyed girl, their lives unfolding in the familiar pattern of generations before them. Then, in the mid-1340s, a terrifying shadow fell over England: the Black Death. It arrived like a silent, invisible enemy, sweeping through towns and villages with terrifying speed and ferocity. The disease struck Oakhaven with brutal force. One by one, villagers succumbed. Fear, a cold and pervasive dread, gripped the community. The familiar rhythms of life shattered, replaced by the grim procession of the dying and the mournful tolling of the church bell. Thomas and Lyra fought desperately to protect their children. They clung to each other, their love a desperate anchor in a sea of despair. They tended to the sick, offered what comfort they could, but the plague was relentless. Their little boy fell ill first, his fever burning, his breath shallow. Lyra nursed him tirelessly, her heart breaking with each passing day. Thomas, despite his grief, continued to work, providing for his family. Burying the dead when no one else would, the plague claimed their son and then their little girl. The grief was almost unbearable, a weight that threatened to crush them both. They were among the few remaining families in Oakhaven, a desolate echo of its former self. Their once vibrant home felt empty, silent. The very air seemed to carry the ghost of their lost children, of their lost community. Thomas, haunted by the emptiness, began to drift. He found solace in endless toil, working in the fields from dawn until dusk, trying to outrun his sorrow. Lyra too struggled, her songs replaced by a quiet melancholy. Her laughter silenced. They were together, but the vastness of their shared grief created a chasm between them. Plague had taken not just their children, but almost their very souls. Many who survived the Black Death succumbed to despair, abandoning their homes, losing themselves to drink or aimless wandering. Some survivors believed the plague was God's wrath, leaving them hopeless. But one evening, as the sun set in a blaze of purple and gold over the now empty fields, Lyra found Thomas sitting alone by the river, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She sat beside him, not speaking, but simply present. She took his calloused hand, her fingers intertwining with his. She looked at him, her own eyes brimming with tears, and said, "Thomas, we are still here. We are scarred, but we are still here, and we have each other." Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of everything they had lost, and the enduring strength of what remained in that moment. A fragile spark rekindled between them. It was not a sudden burst of joy, but a quiet, fierce resolve. They began to rebuild, not just their home, but their lives. They helped their few remaining neighbors. They planted new crops in the fields, replanted the herbs in their garden. They started to speak of their children, not with overwhelming sorrow, but with tender remembrance, keeping their memory alive. Their steadfastness in the face of such unimaginable loss became a beacon for the scattered, traumatized survivors of Oakhaven. When new families seeking unclaimed land began to trickle into the devastated village, they found Thomas and Lyra, two figures of quiet resilience, tending their fields and washing clothes by the river. A living testament to endurance. Their story of enduring loyalty amidst unimaginable loss spread beyond Oakhaven. Traveling preachers and merchants hearing the tale of a village that refused to die, and the couple who refused to break carried it with them. They spoke of Thomas and Lyra as examples of faith, of human spirit, of the power of love to sustain life even when everything else was stripped away. They were not royalty, not knights, but a simple plowman and a washerwoman whose unbroken bond in the face of the apocalypse captivated those who heard it. Chroniclers like the unknown monk of Rochester, writing about the impact of the Black Death, sometimes included anecdotal accounts of profound human resilience, and the story of the steadfast couple of Oakhaven became one such persistent legend. Their love was not about grand passion, but about quiet, enduring devotion. A love that held steady even when the world around them crumbled. It was a narrative of strength, a reminder that the human heart, bound by true affection, could find a way to heal and to carry on. Even after the darkest night, their unwavering love, their refusal to surrender to despair, captivated the medieval world as a testament to the quiet, profound power of a commoner's love.